From the suburban tensions of Love Thy Neighbor to the workplace dynamics of Mind Your Language to the military camaraderie of It Ain't Half Hot Mom, what made these shows so controversial that broadcasters refused to air them? The answer might shock you. Love Thy Neighbor. In the early 1970s, British television was about to witness something unprecedented, a sitcom that would simultaneously captivate millions and spark fierce debates that continue echoing through the decades. Love Thy Neighbor, which aired from 1972 to 1976, became one of the most watched yet most controversial programs in British broadcasting history, drawing up to 18 million viewers at its peak, while simultaneously generating complaints that would ultimately seal its fate in the modern era. The show's premise seemed deceptively simple on the surface. It centered on the comedic clashes between Eddie and Joan Booth, a white working-class couple, and their new neighbors, Bill and Barbie Reynolds, a black West Indian family living side by side in suburban Twickenham, London. Created by writers Vince Powell and Harry Driver for Thames Television, the series aired 53 episodes across 8 series on ITV, including an unaired pilot, a Christmas sketch, and a New Year special. The humor hinged on Eddie's overt racism, expressed through derogatory terms like nignog, sambo, coon, and insinuations about cannibalism or voodoo, and Bill's retaliatory insults such as honky, snowflake, or paleface. What made the show particularly fascinating was how it positioned itself within the context of 1970s Britain. The creators, Powell and Driver, deliberately positioned it as a response to the BBC's Till Death Us Do Part, aiming to explore racial integration amid Britain's post-colonial immigration waves. The United Kingdom during this period was navigating increased migration from Commonwealth countries, fueled by economic needs but met with resistance, as exemplified by Enoch Powell's 1968 Rivers of Blood speech warning of racial strife. The show aired during race riots and rising anti-immigration sentiment, with its creators intending to satirize prejudice by making Eddie the butt of the joke. His ignorance contrasted with Bill's sophistication. The reception, however, was profoundly polarizing from the very beginning. Vice highlights specific offensive content, such as scenes involving cannibal rituals, jovial rape accusations, and lines like, "You can't reason with a Sambo, they haven't got the intellect." One of the show's most vocal defenders has been Rudolph Walker, who played Bill Reynolds. In multiple interviews spanning decades, Walker has consistently defended the series, describing it as exposing racism's absurdity. More recently, in 2024, Walker reiterated having no regrets, viewing it as pure entertainment that addressed difficult topics comically. Yet the real-world impact told a different story. Comedian Sir Lenny Henry admitted being a fan as a child, but noted slurs from the show were used against him at school, highlighting its harmful effects on actual black British citizens. In the 2020s, the series has been effectively sidelined from television schedules and streaming platforms. However, the show hasn't completely disappeared. Network released a complete DVD box set in 2016, and full episodes can be found on YouTube playlists. Mind Your Language. When Mind Your Language first graced British television screens in late 1977, few could have predicted that this seemingly lighthearted comedy about language barriers would become one of the most debated sitcoms in television history. The show, which ran from December 30th, 1977 to April 12th, 1979 on ITV, achieved remarkable popularity, drawing up to 18 million viewers at its peak, yet its legacy remains mired in controversy over its reliance on crude racial and national stereotypes. Created by Vince Powell and produced by London Weekend Television, the series centered on Jeremy Brown, an earnest English teacher portrayed by Barry Evans, who instructed a diverse group of adult immigrants in an evening ESL class at a London adult education college. The premise seemed innocuous enough, exploring the amusing misunderstandings that arise from language barriers and cultural differences. However, the execution proved far more problematic than the creators perhaps intended or recognized. The ensemble cast featured stereotypical portrayals that reduced complex nationalities to one-dimensional caricatures. George Camiller played Giovanni Cupello, an Italian chef known for exclaiming Santa Maria and misunderstanding English metaphors. Kevork Malikian portrayed Maximilian Papandreous, a Greek worker who added H to vowels in his speech. Robert Lee appeared as Taro Nagazumi, a Japanese executive who appended O to English words and constantly bowed while saying "ah so." The show's humor derived primarily from these exaggerated accents, repetitive catchphrases, and cultural misunderstandings that bordered on mockery rather than celebration of diversity. The series ran for 3 seasons, totaling 29 episodes across its initial run, plus a 1979 Christmas special that would prove particularly controversial. The 1979 Christmas special, What's in a Name, became a tipping point. The episode featured racially charged name puns and insults between characters, particularly between Ali Nadim, Pakistani Muslim, and Ranjit Singh, Sikh. This episode prompted over 300 complaints to ITV from educators and anti-racism groups like the Commission for Racial Equality. In 1979, BBC Two's Open Door program aired a scathing critique, arguing that the show's stereotypes contributed contributed to negative perceptions of immigrants and reinforced colonial views. The show's international reception proved fascinatingly varied. While controversial in the UK, it gained a cult following in countries like Pakistan and India. Today, the show is not rerun on UK television, but it remains available through complete series DVD sets. It Ain't Half Hot Mum. Few British sitcoms embody the complex intersection of entertainment, historical context, and evolving social consciousness quite like It Ain't Half Hot Mum. This BBC sitcom, created by the legendary duo Jimmy Perry and David Croft, ran from January 3, 1974 to September 3, 1981, spanning 8 seasons and 56 episodes that captivated audiences with numbers reaching up to 17 million viewers at its peak. Yet this beloved classic has now become a lightning rod for debates about racism, cultural appropriation, and whether vintage comedy should be preserved or suppressed. The series drew from Perry's real-life experiences serving in a Royal Artillery concert party in Deolali, India during World War II. Set in 1945 in Deolali and later Tinman, Burma, the show followed a group of British soldiers who formed an entertainment troupe to perform variety acts, complete with songs, sketches, and drag performances to entertain troops while conveniently avoiding frontline combat. The ensemble cast became household names: Windsor Davies as the blustery Battery Sergeant Major Shut Up Williams, Don Estelle as the diminutive singer Gunner Lofty Sugden, and Melvin Hayes as the effeminate Gunner Gloria Beaumont. However, the most controversial casting choice involved Michael Bates portraying Rangi Ram, an Indian bearer using darkening makeup, a practice now widely condemned as brownface. Bates, an Anglo-Indian actor fluent in Urdu from his time serving with British Army's Gurkhas and Chindits, brought cultural authenticity to the role in terms of language. Perry defended this choice by citing the scarcity of experienced Indian actors in 1970s Britain. Yet modern audiences increasingly view any use of makeup to portray another race as inherently problematic. The series has drawn extensive criticism for multiple elements. Critics point to stereotypes depicting Indian characters as servile or foolish, reinforcing colonial hierarchies. Homophobic slurs abound throughout the series, with the Sergeant Major deriding the entertainment troupe as a load of poofs, language that Perry claimed echoed authentic 1940s military banter. Yet the show has found unexpected defenders from surprising quarters. British Asian comedian Sanjeev Bhaskar offered a passionate defense in 2022, arguing that Rangi Ram was portrayed as resourceful and intelligent rather than ridiculed. The BBC's official stance solidified around 2012, confirming the series would never air again. However, it began unedited repeats on That's TV in June 2023, with full DVD sets remaining available. Till Death Us Do Part. In the landscape of British television, few programs have sparked as much fierce debate, passionate defense, and scathing criticism as Till Death Us Do Part. This groundbreaking sitcom, created by left-wing writer Johnny Speight, aired on BBC One from 1965 to 1975, spanning 7 series and 54 episodes that pioneered a bold new approach to satirizing bigotry, racism, and the profound social divisions tearing through working-class Britain during one of the nation's most turbulent periods. The show centered on the Garnett family in London's East End, focusing particularly on the volcanic clashes between Alf Garnett, played masterfully by Warren Mitchell, a staunchly conservative, bigoted patriarch who embodied reactionary views through constant offensive language and slurs, and his socialist son-in-law Mike Rawlins, portrayed by Anthony Booth. Supporting this combustible dynamic were Alf's long-suffering wife, Else, played by Dandy Nichols, and their progressive daughter, Rita, brought to life by Una Stubbs. Episodes typically unfolded in the family's modest home, with plots driven by Alf's volcanic tirades on immigration, socialism, the welfare state, and cultural changes. Speight's creative vision drew directly from his personal experiences. As a committed, left-wing satirist, he modeled Alf partly on his own father's reactionary attitudes as a docker, combining these observations with his experiences witnessing everyday bigotry among railway workers. The satirical intent was crystal clear: to expose and ridicule racism and ignorance by making Alf simultaneously charismatic yet ultimately foolish, ensuring his views were portrayed as outdated and absurd rather than endorsed. However, this ambitious satirical approach sparked immediate and sustained controversy. From the very first episodes, the show faced complaints for its liberal use of profanity like bloody and racial slurs, including coons. Moral campaigner Mary Whitehouse and her National Viewers and Listeners Association lodged numerous complaints, leading to libel suits against Speight. The show's satirical effectiveness became a subject of intense debate. While defenders argued that laughing at bigotry effectively discredited it, critics contended that some audience members actually agreed with Alf's views, rather than rejecting them. Spite himself later expressed profound regret that portions of the audience aligned with Alf's bigoted perspective. Despite these controversies, the show became a genuine ratings phenomenon, regularly outpacing competitors like Coronation Street. The show's influence extended far beyond British shores, inspiring the American hit All in the Family, 1971-1979, where Alf became Archie Bunker. Many early episodes were wiped by the BBC, leaving 13 episodes missing. Today, streaming platforms like BritBox have excluded it, though That's TV aired surviving episodes in 2022. The Black and White Minstrel Show. Perhaps no program in British broadcasting history embodies the stark evolution of cultural consciousness and racial sensitivity quite like the Black and White Minstrel Show. This BBC variety program, which aired from 1958 to 1978, featured white performers in blackface singing, dancing, and performing skits inspired by 19th century American minstrel traditions, creating what would eventually become recognized as one of the most shameful examples of institutionalized racism in British media history. The show's origins traced back to a deeply problematic entertainment tradition. American minstrel shows emerged in the early 19th century as theatrical performances where white actors, using burnt cork or shoe polish for blackface, caricatured enslaved black people through grossly exaggerated songs, dances, and comedic skits. These performances, popularized by figures like Thomas Dartmouth Rice in the 1830s with his Jim Crow character, spread stereotypes portraying black individuals as lazy, buffoonish, or overly sentimental, poisoning global perceptions of race for generations and laying foundations for systemic discrimination. By the time this format reached post-war Britain, it had been sanitized and repackaged as family entertainment. The BBC version debuted in 1958, featuring white singers and dancers in blackface performing on elaborate sets reminiscent of the antebellum American South. Produced initially by George Innes, the program's structure included group musical numbers, solo performances, and comedic interludes, all presented as wholesome variety programming suitable for the entire family. The show's popularity proved staggering and sustained. It quickly became a ratings phenomenon, attracting up to 16.5 million viewers by 1963, generating enormously successful touring stage versions that shattered box office records at prestigious venues like the Victoria Palace Theatre. Its international prestige was cemented in 1961 when it won the Golden Rose at the Montreux Television Festival, a prestigious award that seemed to validate its approach as sophisticated light entertainment rather than racist caricature. However, beneath this veneer of mainstream acceptance, profound discomfort simmered within communities directly affected. Internal resistance emerged remarkably early, but was systematically dismissed. In 1962, BBC chief accountant Barry Thorne wrote a passionate memo to director of television Kenneth Adam, decrying the show's Uncle Tom attitude as a disgrace and an insult to colored people everywhere. Adams' response was dismissive, calling Thorne's concerns errant nonsense. The controversy peaked in 1967 when the Campaign Against Racial Discrimination submitted a petition demanding the show's cancellation for its hideous impersonation of black people. The show's end finally came in 1978, with BBC One controller Bill Cotton stating that the racist implication could no longer be ignored. A 2023 BBC Two documentary, David Harewood on Blackface, explored Britain's blackface history comprehensively. Curry and chips. In the annals of British television controversy, few shows achieved infamy quite as swiftly and thoroughly as Curry and Chips. This British sitcom, produced by London Weekend Television for ITV, premiered on November 21, 1969 and completed its 6-episode run. By December 26, 1969, a remarkably brief existence that belied its lasting impact on discussions about race, representation, and the boundaries of satirical comedy. Written by Johnny Spite and based on an idea by Spike Milligan, the series was set in a novelty factory called Lillicrap Lantide, where workplace tensions involving immigration and race provided the ostensible backdrop for comedy. The show starred Spike Milligan himself in brownface as Kevin O'Grady, a character of Pakistani-Irish heritage derogatorily called Paki Paddy, who faced systematic discrimination from his colleagues. The supporting cast included Eric Sykes as Foreman Arthur, Norman Rossington as bigoted shop steward Norman, and Kenny Lynch as Kenny, a British-born character of Asian descent. The series represented ITV's first sitcom broadcast entirely in color, a technical milestone that couldn't overcome its profoundly troubling content. The show aimed to expose and mock racial prejudices in British society, similar to Spite's earlier work like Till Death Us Do Part. However, its execution drew immediate and intense criticism for Milligan's caricatured performance complete with exaggerated accent, the frequent deployment of ethnic slurs including wog, coon, and pocky appearing throughout episodes, and scenes that relied on crude racial humor designed explicitly for laughs rather than genuine social commentary. One episode reportedly used the word bloody 59 times, adding concerns about profanity to the mounting outrage over racial content. Viewers and critics argued vehemently that the humor consistently came at the expense of marginalized groups rather than genuinely challenging bigotry. Complaints flooded in from multiple sources, including the public, the Race Relations Board, and cultural commentators, prompting intervention by the Independent Television Authority. The show's defensive justifications proved insufficient against mounting criticism. Spite defended the show as anti-racist, arguing it portrayed English characters as ignorant bigots to provoke reflection, much like his approach in Till Death Us Do Part. However, critics persuasively contended that the lack of a strong counter-narrative or sympathetic non-white characters allowed prejudices to dominate unchallenged, potentially reinforcing racism rather than dismantling it through satire. The Independent Television Authority intervened decisively, deeming the content racist despite the creator's stated intentions, leading to the show's removal after its brief 6-episode run. Today, while not under legal prohibition, the series occupies a space of effective banishment from mainstream British television. However, complete accessibility exists through a DVD released in 2010, and clips remain available on YouTube. The Melting Pot. Some television shows achieve notoriety not through long runs or massive popularity, but through the spectacular nature of their failure and the enduring controversy surrounding them. The Melting Pot exemplifies this category perfectly. This British sitcom, created by and starring Spike Milligan, aired only one pilot episode on BBC One on June 11, 1975, as part of the Comedy Playhouse anthology series before being swiftly and decisively pulled from further broadcast, with all subsequent produced episodes remaining locked away from public viewing for decades. Created by Milligan in collaboration with writer Neil Shand, the series aimed to satirize multiculturalism in London, but ultimately faltered catastrophically due to its reliance on profoundly outdated and harmful racial tropes. The show's premise centered on Mr. Van Gogh, played by Milligan in brownface makeup, and his son, Mr. Rembrandt, portrayed by John Bird, depicted as Pakistani illegal immigrants who arrive in Britain by boat from Amsterdam, secure fake passports, and settle into a boarding house at number 7 Piles Road, a location explicitly framed as a microcosm of London's diverse immigrant communities. The supporting cast represented various ethnicities through deeply problematic caricatured portrayals. Frank Carson played Irish landlord Paddy O'Brien. Alexandra Dane portrayed his South African daughter Nefertiti Skupinski, while additional characters included representations of Chinese, Jewish, Arab, and Australian communities, all reduced to crude stereotypes. South Asians portrayed with exaggerated accents as bumbling, black characters with oversized features, Jewish figures obsessed with money. The show's content proved genuinely shocking, even by the standards of 1970s television. Sources consistently document the frequent use of racial slurs throughout episodes, including the N-word and other derogatory terms appearing multiple times per episode without satirical framing or meaningful counterpoints. Episodes featured plotlight scenarios involving everyday interactions laced with ethnic humor, such as pub visits, medical checkups, and courtroom antics, often devolving into physical comedy and verbal slurs. One blogger meticulously tallied over a dozen instances of the N-word in a single episode. Production details reveal confusion and disorganization. Accounts vary on the total number of episodes produced, with some sources indicating a pilot plus 5 additional episodes, while others cite 7 episodes overall. The BBC's archives reportedly hold the tapes, but they remained effectively locked away, contributing to the show's status as lost media until recent years. The cancellation stemmed primarily from the BBC's acute apprehension about inevitable public backlash. In an era marked by genuine real-world racial tensions, including National Front rallies gaining disturbing traction and increasingly heated debates over immigration policy, the show's completely unfiltered approach to race was deemed catastrophically risky. Milligan defended his intent as lighthearted entertainment, but critics argued persuasively that the complete absence of irony or genuine social commentary made it appear to endorse prejudice rather than critique it. Modern reviews consistently describe the content as profoundly offensive and rubbish, devoid of Milligan's usual inventive comedic spark. In 2024, copies emerged on platforms like archive.org, allowing limited access to researchers and curious viewers. Fawlty Towers. Unlike most entries in this examination of controversial programming, Fawlty Towers occupies a unique position. It remains widely celebrated as one of Britain's greatest sitcoms, while simultaneously containing content that has sparked fierce modern debates about censorship, context, and the preservation versus sanitization of classic comedy. Created by John Cleese and Connie Booth, this BBC Two sitcom aired from 1975 to 1979, spanning just 2 seasons and 12 perfect episodes that achieved legendary status through their masterful farce, razor-sharp wit, and endlessly quotable dialogue. Set in a chaotic Torquay hotel run by the perpetually irritable Basil Fawlty, Cleese, alongside his wife Sybil, Prunella Scales, waitress Polly, Booth, and the hapless Spanish waiter Manuel, Andrew Sachs, the show became renowned for its escalating chaos, physical comedy, and Basil's catastrophic attempts to maintain upper-middle-class pretensions. Despite initially mixed reviews, it won multiple BAFTA awards and topped prestigious polls, including the British Film Institute's 100 Greatest British Television Programs in 2000. The controversy centers specifically on one episode, The Germans, from Season 1, Episode 6, which aired on October 24, 1975. In this famous installment, Basil suffers a concussion and subsequently hosts German guests, leading to his frantic insistence on not mentioning World War II while simultaneously doing so incessantly. The episode's title became one of British comedy's most iconic catchphrases, "Don't mention the war." However, buried within this celebrated episode lies the problematic element that sparked modern controversy. A scene features the elderly Major Gowan, a recurring character embodying outdated colonial attitudes, using racial slurs, wogs, and niggers, while reminiscing about cricket teams. While the scene was written to satirize the Major's fossilized prejudices, showing them as absurd and reprehensible, modern sensibilities increasingly question whether any context justifies including such language. On June 11, 2020, amid the George Floyd protests and a broader wave of media institutions reconsidering racial content, UKTV temporarily withdrew the episode, citing the need for review due to racial slurs. The removal sparked immediate controversy, with John Cleese swiftly condemning the move as cowardly and stupid, arguing passionately that we were not supporting his views, we were making fun of them, emphasizing the fundamental distinction between depicting prejudice to mock it versus endorsing it. By June 13, 2020, UKTV reinstated the episode with a warning for potentially offensive content and language, acknowledging both the satirical context and contemporary concerns. However, this wasn't the first editorial intervention. In 2013 and 2021, BBC reruns excised the slurs under watershed guidelines, sparking passionate backlash from fans who felt such editing fundamentally diluted the satire's impact. In 2024, the West End stage adaptation removed the racial slurs entirely. As of November 2025, the complete series streams on platforms like BritBox with appropriate warnings. A 2025 documentary titled The Cancellation of Fawlty Towers explores the show's cultural impact and ongoing censorship debates. The Dukes of Hazzard. While most entries in this examination focus on British programming, one American series demands inclusion due to its parallel trajectory of popularity, controversy, and effective removal from a widespread public viewing. The Dukes of Hazzard, which ran on CBS from January 26, 1979 to February 8, 1985, comprised 7 seasons and 147 episodes that captivated American audiences with high-speed car chases, lighthearted family comedy, and Southern charm, while simultaneously featuring Confederate symbolism that would ultimately relegate it to cultural exile. Created by Guy Waldron and produced by Warner Bros. Television, the series drew inspiration from Waldron's 1975 film Moonrunners. The show followed cousins Bo Duke, John Schneider, and Luke Duke, Tom Wopat, as they navigated life in fictional Hazzard County, Georgia, perpetually on probation for running moonshine and consequently barred from using firearms. Living with Uncle Jesse, Denver Pyle, and their resourceful cousin Daisy, Catherine Bach, they worked various odd jobs while consistently thwarting the corrupt schemes of County Commissioner Boss Hogg, Sorrel Book, and his bumbling sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane, James Best. The Duke's vehicle became television's most iconic car, the General Lee, a customized 1969 Dodge Charger painted bright orange with 01 on the doors, and a Confederate battle flag prominently displayed on the roof. Famous for daring jumps that became the show's signature visual element, the car symbolized rebellion against authority while embodying themes of family loyalty and rural ingenuity. Narrated by country legend Waylon Jennings, who also performed the theme song Good Ol' Boys, which hit #1 on Billboard's Hot Country Singles in 1980, the show emphasized themes that resonated deeply with rural American audiences. Production details reveal the show's massive scale and cultural impact. Over 300 Dodge Chargers were used and frequently destroyed for spectacular stunt sequences, with famous ski jump moments requiring precise engineering. The show peaked with 21 to 27 million viewers per episode during its early seasons, spawning extensive merchandise including toys, lunchboxes, and slot cars. Its success led to multiple adaptations, including reunion movies and a 2005 theatrical film that grossed over $111 million. The Confederate flag's presence, while initially intended to symbolize Southern pride and anti-authority rebellion, has become increasingly recognized as deeply problematic. The imagery inevitably evokes associations with slavery, systemic racism, and the Confederacy's defense of human bondage, connections that cannot be divorced from this symbol regardless of individual intent. The controversy intensified dramatically after the June 2015 Charleston church shooting. TV Land abruptly pulled the series on July 1, 2015, citing the flag's undeniably divisive nature. Warner Bros. Consumer Products simultaneously ceased licensing any merchandise featuring the Confederate flag. Cast responses varied significantly, with John Schneider calling the backlash insane. The controversy resurged forcefully in 2020 during the George Floyd protests. Amazon pulled it from free streaming. As of November 2025, it's available for digital purchase on platforms like Amazon Video and Apple TV, with physical DVD box sets widely available. Mixed blessings. As British television grappled with representing increasingly multicultural society during the late 1970s, Mixed Blessings emerged as London Weekend Television's attempt to address interracial relationships through situational comedy, airing on ITV from March 3, 1978 to June 7, 1980. Created by veteran comedy writer Sid Green and spanning 3 series totaling 23 episodes, the show starred Christopher Blake as Thomas Simpson and Muriel Odenton as Susan Lambert, portraying a young interracial couple, Thomas White and Susan Black, whose marriage sparked intense familial conflicts that drove the narrative. The series' premise positioned it as potentially progressive, following Thomas and Susan, recent university graduates deeply in love, as they navigated cohabitation and marriage despite vocal disapproval from both sets of parents. They eventually moved into a basement flat provided by Thomas's supportive Aunt Dorothy, played by Joan Sanderson, setting the stage for episodic humor centered on cultural misunderstandings, generational gaps, and family prejudices that provided comedic fodder while ostensibly promoting tolerance and integration. Supporting characters amplified these tensions significantly. Thomas's parents, Edward, George Waring, and Annie, Sylvia Kay, embodied traditional white British attitudes, while Susan's family, including Winston Lambert, Gregory Monroe, represented black British perspectives navigating a society still adjusting to post-war immigration's realities. Episodes typically unfolded in domestic settings, the couple's flat, family homes, or social venues, featuring circular arguments, awkward encounters, and moments where cultural differences became sources of comedy rather than genuine understanding. Production faced significant disruptions. A major interruption occurred during Series 3 due to the 1979 ITV technician strike, which halted recording after completing only the first episode. The remaining episodes were completed post-strike but faced irregular scheduling as ITV prioritized other programming to recover from the industrial action's impacts, potentially contributing to the show's declining visibility and cultural footprint. Thematically, Mixed Blessings aimed to position itself as more progressive than controversial predecessors. The lead characters were depicted sympathetically, with their relationship humanized and presented positively amid external opposition. However, critical reception reveals profound ambiguities in execution and impact. The BFI's Ali Jafar argues that while the show mirrors the confused racial attitudes of the time, it remains fundamentally unclear whether it's ridiculing prejudice or subtly mocking the very idea of interracial harmony itself. The title itself, Mixed Blessings, suggests inherent ambivalence. Humor frequently relied on racial stereotypes and myths, including characters making politically incorrect remarks such as offering a banana to a black engineer or repeatedly noting black visitors' presence as noteworthy. Contemporary discussions on forums like Digital Spy echo sentiments that the show has not aged well, with users expressing suspicions that its racial humor contributes significantly to its current obscurity. The series is not officially banned, but it hasn't been repeated on British television since the early 1980s. In terms of availability, all 23 episodes have been uploaded to YouTube channels, with DVDs released culminating in a comprehensive 2022 box set.